The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you on this Monday morning from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. So thrilled to be here with you on this Monday. We have a big show planned for you. I'm very excited and lots to cover. And we want to get to Bonnie, and we're always late getting to Bonnie. So I'm going to start by very quickly telling you that there are lots of different ways to interact with the show. And Traven's going to show you a bunch of them right now. He's going to cycle through them on the bottom of the screen, and I'm just going to remind you to go to autism-live.com for our homepage. You can chat with us. It's totally, by the way, every place that we are, it's free. Every place that interaction is free. It's just some places it's more anonymous than others, right? If you want to be completely anonymous and not have other people see your question and not even have me know your name, you can absolutely do that at autism-live.com. Go to the bottom of the page, push the chat button. It'll pop up a box and you just type in your information, and I don't even know who sent that in. But we also are very responsive to the comments, especially on YouTube and Facebook. That's super easy for us to be responsive to, so feel free to write in those spots, right? We appreciate you being here. We love your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns. We love to give information and inspiration to the greater autism community, which includes, of course, individuals who are on the autism spectrum, their parents and their caregivers, and all the people who love them, and all the individuals who are working with those individuals for them to be able to make the most progress that they can about the things that they care about, right? That's what we're here to help and support as much as possible. I like to remind you at the start of the show whenever I can that we have tons of experts on the show. I'm going to have two amazing experts on the show today, but I'm not one of them. And please don't forget that. I'm a parent, and I'm a proud parent, and I'm a parent who has been so fortunate and lucky that I feel the need to pay forward and help everyone that I can to get to what they need, which is not necessarily the same thing that I needed and that my son needed, right? This is a one size fits no one community. This is not one size fits all is what I'm trying to say. So please come with your questions and your concerns, and if I don't know and I don't have an expert who can tell you, I will hunt one down. How's that? I do want to be able to help you to get to the things that you want to. So hey, on Mondays, we like to start off with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what in the world are these experts talking about, and what does it have to do with me, and how can this actually help me? Why should I stop everything and learn what this term is, right? And our philosophy is if it saves you 5 minutes and gets you progress and saves you $5, then hey, it's kind of worth it, right? And those are the jargon terms we pick. These are the things that are going to come up time and time again, and if there's no way you're going to learn them all in a weekend, right? But if we go over them and explain them to you, we hope that there'll be terms that become friends that you, and I know you're like, friends? I'm going to become friends with you? Yes, I've said the same thing. But then eventually you do, and they roll trippingly off your tongue, and that's when you know you have arrived, right? But it also will save you time, and you'll make more progress. So today's jargon term, and we're still having our technical glitch, so we can't put it up on the screen for you. I'm just going to say it for you. And Traven probably can put it up in a lower third. But our jargon term of the day is BIP. I promised this to you last Thursday. So BIP, which is a behavior intervention plan. So our actual definition, and I'm just going to have to read it to you, and you know I like to make fun of the actual definitions. A behavior intervention plan is an action plan based on observations made in an FBA. Don't you like it when they include more jargon terms than the jargon term that you're trying to figure out what it is? Okay, so again, an action plan based on observations made in an FBA that outlines how a team will improve difficult behavior that is inhibiting a child's success in school and other environments. It's not the worst definition, as long as you know what an FBA is. An FBA is a functional behavior assessment. It's where we look at the behavior and figure out what is the function of the behavior, why is this behavior happening. But let's move on to our working definition. Our working definition, which is a little bit more watered down, hopefully a little bit more accessible, although this one really isn't. Behavior intervention plan is a concise plan based on child-specific data for successfully managing challenging behavior. It protects the child from forms of discipline that are not effective, are punitive, and are random. Okay, so here's what you need to know about a BIP. If your child has an IEP, I want you to go and find it. If it's not right now, do it sometime in the next 2 months, because most of you are getting out of school right now, and you might have just gone to your IEP meeting. It's important to know where your IEP is. Keep it in a place where you can access it, even if you have to stick it in the freezer. You know what I'm saying? Like a place where you always know where it is. I have a friend who has it in a sheet protector, which has a magnet on the back, so it goes on the side of the refrigerator where nobody can see it, right? But if she needs her IEP, boom, it's there, right? But you take out your IEP and you look at it, and on the first page, somewhere on the first page, it says BIP attached. And then there's a little box with a check or not a check. If there's no check there, it's time to get to work. Because if your child has an IEP and, I guess if your child is having no issues at all at school, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you've ever gotten a note home saying that your child has done something in school, you need a BIP. You need a BIP because if you don't, we see news stories all the time of, it's usually not the teacher, although sometimes it's the teacher, but a lot of times it's the substitute teacher, or it's the lunch lady, or it's the assistant principal, or someone else who, doesn't know what's going on and verbally wasn't told what was going on, but your child behaves in a certain way, and then they decide to be punitive with your child. Perfect example was the case a few years ago of the substitute teacher who came into a classroom. It was a mainstream classroom, and there was one little boy who was 6 years old who was on the autism spectrum, and he had an ongoing issue where he liked to touch other people's ears. And apparently there was a prompt that the teacher had that would make him stop, or that he could touch his own ears, or whatever the deal was. It wasn't written down on a piece of paper. It wasn't on a Post-it. It wasn't anywhere, right? So the substitute teacher comes in, and the teacher, former teacher, right? Sometimes you get sick and you're having to write plans and you don't put everything in it because you don't have time and you're sick, right? So the substitute teacher saw the little boy doing this and went over and pinched his little ears and said, "How do you like it?" Pinched his little ears. Now we have a problem, right? Because now the child is afraid of school and his ears hurt. He wasn't pinching other people's ears, he was just touching them. I get it. She didn't know what was going on. But if you have a BIP, then it becomes part of the legal document that everybody has to uphold the BIP. And if in the BIP it says that he likes to touch other people's ears, then there's a plan. And the plan says that, we tell him if he's starting to touch somebody's ears to do this, that, or the other. We do this before he touches the ears. And if he does touch somebody else's ears, here's the consequence for it. And I can guarantee you that there is no BIP that says pinch him back. That is so 1935. What your great-great-grandmother said, well, he hit you, hit him back. That's never in a BIP. Never. So the real reason why you need to have it is for a protection for your child. We've heard of teachers putting a student into a duffel bag because she couldn't get a control of him. I can guarantee you that that would not have been in a behavior intervention plan. So that's why you want a good behavior intervention plan. And it gets, if that box is checked, then it gets attached to the IEP. Now it's all in one. By the way, the mom that I know that keeps it in a sheet protector with a metal thing also gives that to everyone who comes into contact with her child at school, so that later on when they go, well, I never saw that document, she can be like, well, that's funny, I gave it to you on the first day of school. And she does include the magnet so that they can put it on like file cabinets or whatever, so that it's easy at hand for them as well. BIP, it's a behavior intervention plan, and it protects your child, but it also improves progress, right? If we follow the BIP, then we keep challenging behavior at bay. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day, and our question today is very simply one of the most important questions that we need to know for ourselves and for all the people in our lives, not just the people on the autism spectrum, but certainly the people on the autism spectrum. What do you do to get attention? We all need attention to a certain degree, right? So what do you do to get attention? What is your thing when you, and it can be different for different people, right? What do you do to get attention when you need attention from your child? What do you do when you need to get attention from your significant other? What do you do when you need to get attention at work? What are the things that you do? And then ask yourself, if it doesn't work, then what do you do? What are the things that you do? Because for individuals who are on the spectrum, we talk all the time about the 4 usual suspects for challenging behavior. Attention is one of the biggest ones. People do things to get attention. And by the way, we always have to remember with attention that when somebody is in need of attention and they're not getting positive attention, it's just as viable for them. It's just as rewarding to get negative attention. I know, we all go, I don't see how that could possibly be. Pick up a tabloid, it's evidence. There's always some star that's behaving badly so that they can be on the cover of the magazine. Attention is important to most people. So if we can teach ourselves and others how to appropriately get attention, woohoo! I mean, honestly, you want to know one of the big keys to success is being able to appropriately get attention. And that's success across everything. Like if you know how to appropriately get attention from your spouse and you get good attention, you're going to have a very successful relationship if it's both ways, right? If you know how to appropriately get attention at work and it's good attention so that you're getting rewards, you're going to have more success at work. How do you get attention? Write in and tell us right now. I'd love to see. Okay, moving on. I'm trying to hurry because I don't want to be late for Bonnie Yates. Our topic of the week. We always have a topic of the week, and our topic this week is functional communication. Because if we can appropriately get attention, and if we can appropriately request the things that we need, we will be happier people. And if that's not a reason for everything, then we need to stop and reevaluate. Because I'll tell you what, we had this discussion on Thursday about how we want our kids, as parents, we want our kids to be independent. Yeah, no, that's a big goal. But we want them to be safe, right? And we also want our kids to be happy. And if we aren't trying to put into the mix, how do we help individuals on the autism spectrum be happy, then we are missing the boat. We want them to be, I want to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? Why would we leave people on the autism spectrum out of that? So functional communication is a basic right. It's a basic human need to be able to say, I need this, I need water, I need to go to the bathroom. I mean, we would consider it a hostage situation if we did not have the ability to get a drink of water, go to the bathroom, or say I'm hot or cold or I need to sleep, right? We would consider that a hostage situation. We cannot allow that to happen with the people that we love on the autism spectrum. And functional communication is step 1. Everyone deserves to have functional communication. So we're going to be talking more about that all this week and how we work towards functional communication. So today on this show, though, I'm very excited because we have something about functional communication. It all comes together and coheses into this wonderful thing. But first, we have Bonnie Yates, who's going to be joining us to answer some of your legal questions. She is a special education attorney and a mom extraordinaire. And then a little bit later, we have Paul Nightingale from Nawmal.com. Nawmal. I know it sounded like I was saying normal with with like a northeastern accent. Nawmal. But they have a way, a really cool way for individuals on the autism spectrum to express themselves. Oh, you're just going to love it. It's going to blow your mind. Okay, so we're going to start with Bonnie. So stick with us. We're going to be right back after these messages.
Can you have a life with autism? Absolutely not. Give it up right now. No, that's not true. I'm here to tell you, you can have a life with autism. I have a life with autism, and it's a good one. When you start on this journey, you don't know what's going to happen. You really have no idea. You're kind of in shell shock for the first couple years. It could be as long as 5 years until you realize, I do matter to people. When my son was first diagnosed, I remember thinking I would go anywhere and do anything for him. I didn't even think about it. I just came way at the bottom of the list. However, after a few years passed, I realized if I'm not important anymore, then that means no one's going to be here for him. So how do you have this life with autism? It's not easy. It's never going to be easy, but it can be done. It's really all about support. And support is a word you're going to hear a lot when you deal with the autism power structure. And that means schools, government agencies, social service agencies that can help you. There are things out there that you don't even know exist. So once you start connecting with other parents, you're going to kind of find this treasure chest full of things that only they can help you unlock. But once you get that support, it could be a babysitter coming to your home. It could be a therapist to take your child out and get him into the community. You can either leave the house, do your shopping, go to a farmer's market, do whatever you want to do. And it doesn't matter if it's really only about 5% of your time. As long as it's dedicated to you, that's going to help. It's all about your willingness to find support and your willingness to accept change and your willingness to kind of stick up for yourself because you're battling for your child and you have to realize you guys are connected. There's a bond between you and your child that can never be broken. And if you're doing well, then your child's going to do well. So finding what you need to be happy, whole, and healthy as a person is a way that you can have a life with autism. And that's important too, because if you have a life with autism, you can also give your child a life too.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are so excited because we have...
What happened? I can't hear you.
Oh, I can hear you. Bonnie's having trouble with her...
what happened here?
I don't know, but I can hear you. We've got Bonnie Yates.
Shannon?
Well, unfortunately, we can hear her, but she can't hear us. All right, we're going to call her back. Bonnie is a special education attorney with a law firm.
What's happened?
So we could hear you, but you couldn't hear us.
Okay, yeah, now I can hear you though.
Okay, great. We're live, and so
You're live?
we are.
And they're lovely?
We're live and lovely. I was just telling them that you are a special education attorney with the law firm of Jargon and Chow here in Southern California in Culver City, and I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit about Jargon and Chow, and then give the disclaimer, please.
All right. Let's see. Jargon and Chow is a 6-attorney law firm in Culver City, California, and our focus is on special education and disability discrimination. We also do higher ed, which means college and above, and regional center services. And our phone number is 310-391-0330.
Perfect.
And I guess I really tired today. I completely apologize. I'm just like hitting my IEP wall. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, lawyer4children.com. And the disclaimer is we're talking to you about federal and state laws that pertains to special education under the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. If you have a specific problem, you need to consult an attorney in your own state. And there's a list of good special ed attorneys at www.copaa.net. And I don't get any brownie points for promoting COPA on the air. I think they're a really good organization, and I think most of the attorneys in that group of attorneys are there for the right reasons. So that's why, if you're in another state, I recommend you to COPA rather than giving you a more specific referral.
Love that. So Bonnie, I'm going to jump right in here to some questions, and I just want to say too, thank you, because we had pre-taped the show last week and then aired it on Memorial Day. And we've never done that before, where we were live on a holiday, and we got such a tremendous response. And people, I have to send you some of the comments. People were just loving you, Bonnie.
That's nice. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, people were so excited.
I am not an internet personality in at least the usual sense. I'm always wondering, like, what am I doing?
Well, I got to tell you, I think probably you need to amend that, because I think you are an internet personality now, and people were just eating you up. I mean, now we know that on days like Memorial Day, people love to have the opportunity to have the show and have a new show, and so now we know.
That's great.
And
that's really, really good.
They were just eating you up with a spoon, Bonnie.
Well, thank you.
So somebody wrote in and said, thank you, Bonnie, for all your great info. Where can I go to learn more about what accommodations are right for my ASD son entering middle school?
Okay, so this is not really classy or sexy, but I honestly would start by Googling accommodations for high-functioning autistic student in middle school. You will get a lot of accommodations, and you can seriously consider each one and decide whether or not you think it fits. That's actually one way to get accommodations. Rights law may talk about accommodations. They're available kind of in a limited way on the internet. And then we have something else, special education rights and responsibilities, which I have heavily borrowed from in doing the show. And they have really well-written chapters on all aspects of special education. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have good accommodations. I don't know whether CARD has anything on the air. Does CARD have anything on, Skills Live? Not on the air. Does CARD have anything at its website about accommodations?
Well, here on Autism Live, we actually did a show. It's probably 3 or 4 years old, where we had a middle school teacher who we had heard about through the grapevine that, does a great job. And she, over the years, compiled a list, and we did a show on it. I think it was in a period of time when we weren't necessarily putting the best putting the best words so that you could search it up. But if you look for it and can't find it, and email me at s.penrod@autism-live.com, I will make it my business to find it, because it was a particularly great show. It was just about when my son was going into middle school, and I used everything that she had on the list, and it was like great. It
seems to me another way to go at this is to talk about the problem, or the symptom, what is the academic or other issue. In other words, if he is taking medication and it makes him really groggy, so he needs an extra half an hour of sleep in the morning, that's the problem. So the fix for that, for example, would be an accommodation that says you can, come to school a half an hour late. So maybe rather than just trying to figure out what the accommodations are first, get a really good working definition of the problem. There's obviously some really common accommodations that are probably pertinent to, to all age groups. I mean, you always have preferential seating, you have people getting extra, being given extra time to complete homework assignments, extra time on tests, receiving your tests in a quiet room. For people that have a lot of sensory issues, you might need a sensory break. You might need, to leave the classroom and walk around for a couple minutes. Let's say you have a metabolic disorder where you need more frequent nutrition and bathroom and water breaks. That could be written into your IEP. It just, so those are sort of some of the more frequently seen and maybe more conventional ones. It depends on the nature of the problem.
I will say.
And if you want to write in a supplemental question about the specific problems that you're trying to target in a subsequent show, we could talk about.
There you go.
Whether those issues are properly addressed by accommodations or by services or by what.
I think
that would be a good question.
That's a great question. I will say the one thing that helped us the most that would never have occurred to me was to ask for a double set of books. So that each one of his classrooms, there was a set of books for him, but there was a set of books at home so that his backpack didn't weigh 700 pounds and we always had the book. Always. Yeah. Because before, like, there were times he'd come home and he'd say, I'm supposed to do page 71 in my math book, and I'd go, where's the math book? And it didn't come home. So, but having the math book at home at all times, and I don't know why that wouldn't have occurred to me, but it just wouldn't have.
Another really common one along these lines is a communication log, right?
Oh, yeah. That's imperative. Where somebody, there's a notebook that comes home and goes back where somebody writes something. So if there's an important note for the parent, oh yeah, that's a lifesaver. I wish we could have that in life, Bonnie.
A communication book?
Yes.
Well, you could write like, hey, you were kind of weird today. Was something going on with you? I mean, I really couldn't get on your wavelength. Write me back.
Well, even just with my husband, there are times, I don't know.
Well, we all know that husbands need heavy accommodating.
Well,
that's why we're so tired.
I think it's me, but somebody will say, can you ask your husband this? And then I forget. Like I should just text him right then. Anyway, I digress. No one needs to hear my marital issues. So the next one, question for the lawyer. Can you talk about the difference between a pull out and a push in? My son's school says they don't do push ins. They said it at the IEP and I didn't argue because I didn't know what it is and if there's an advantage or a right to something, and I didn't sign. So, this happens all the time that you hear a term and you're like, I don't know what that means. And so this parent did what I do, which is just go, I'm going to say nothing till I look it up.
Okay, first of all, let's be clear. It's not an NC-17 rating question. It is an educational question.
Yes.
For students that have special education and related services who, for example, might be primarily participating in a general education setting, they can be pulled out of class to go to their related services. So typically, you might be pulled out to go to a smaller speech group, to have occupational therapy, to have resource services. And those services are intended to be, more quiet and more focused. However, they also don't allow the treatment personnel to work in certain ways with a student, and so sometimes it will be viewed as being more advantageous to push into the class. So that would mean have the speech therapist or the resource specialist or whomever go into the general ed or the special ed classroom and actually work in the classroom with the whole class and the teacher, which gives you the benefit of kind of understanding better what's going on in the classroom and what's being worked on, and using the classroom setting to work on certain things that you can't necessarily work on in a small group. So that's the difference between pull out and push in. When people say we don't do blah, 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 that's like a sign that, all the, what is it, when you pull the lever at the casino and everything starts lighting up and making noise and stuff like that, that's a light up and make noise moment, because we don't do is not part of IDEA. We don't do is like, we don't know how to do this, we're intimidated, or our staff is overloaded and we don't have them on that day, but we don't do is a big red flag for you all. And so when somebody hits you with a we don't do, you have to ask yourself, is that consistent with this notion that, there's a zero reject aspect to the IDEA. Nobody is too low, to be eligible if they need special education and related services to benefit from their education. And so if you need a push in speech therapy session in your general ed classroom so that the speech therapist can work on certain socialization goals, of course you do a push in. Frankly, the concern about push-ins is that people don't ever do them, or if they go into the classroom, the services are not effective because the class is very loud and there's too many other things going on. I would have expected them to say we don't do pullouts, because there always is sort of a tendency toward wanting to make the group bigger, wanting to make the session shorter, wanting to turn direct instruction into a consult. But that's what a push-in or a pull-out service is in the context of the IDEA.
Well, thank you so much, because I also, when I read that, I was like, we don't, fill in the blank. We don't do, I can't tell you how many times I hear this from parents that they're at the IEP meeting, and I've had it happen at IEP meetings where somebody says, oh, well, we don't do that, we don't do that here.
Right, exactly.
And you're like, well, how can that be? Because it's an individualized education program. So and now hasn't signed the IEP, she or he, and now you can go back and know what it is and have a feel for what you want for your child. But if you want a push in, if you feel a push in is appropriate, then it's time to push back. Wouldn't you say, Bonnie?
I would, and also I'd be surprised if anybody put in writing that we don't do push-ins. But I guess because I'm tired and a little goofy today, I had this image as we were talking. Do you remember when you were a kid and we would go to birthday parties? We had those party favors that were like a whistle that when you blew into it, this big long thing unrolled and
Yes.
It made a noise and then rolled back up again?
Yes.
So I think we need to bring those to our IEP, and if anybody says we don't do those, you just get out your party favor and you just make that noise.
Exactly.
I think that's
because it's ridiculous.
I have heard so many times we can't do. We can only do 45 minutes of speech because we only have a speech therapist here one day a week. Wrong. That's not the basis for setting a level of therapeutic intervention. It's need-based, not schedule-based. And, I really get that teachers are exhausted and administrators are exhausted. I was at a long IEP meeting yesterday, and we had the rare opportunity. Actually, the meeting went so long, the district bought lunch for everybody because they were concerned they wouldn't finish the IEP by the end of the school year. And it was actually really nice to sit around for 10 minutes and eat salad with the school district, because it really just reminded me that we almost never interact in a social, pleasant manner. And there's a lot of nice people that are trying to do good stuff for kids at school. But, we can't have our kids not get the services they need because somebody's overbooked or understaffed. Our kids only get one shot at getting better, so we can't really say, yeah, sorry, we know you're booked, so no speech therapy individual in a pull-out session for my son. He can work on his pragmatics when he's in college and you have better funding.
Right. Right. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I have a question about getting speech services for my 3-year-old who was recently diagnosed with autism. The school district is saying that we can have a half an hour twice a week through summer. They gave us the schedule. I cannot leave work and drive my child at those times for a half an hour. They are saying take it or leave it, but if I leave it for the summer, I cannot have it in the fall. Is this true? It is crazy.
It is crazy, and it is untrue, and I would really like to see the way they wrote your IEP up. I feel like they're saying one thing and they're telling you another. I don't know when they're offering the speech therapy services, but if you can't get the student to speech therapy and he needs a speech therapy, guess what? They have to offer transportation home to school and school to home. So that would solve the problem with not being able to take them to speech therapy. So I would say to them, look, I have a full-time or whatever it is job, and I appreciate that the speech therapy services are available over the summer. However, I can't bring him at those times. However, I could bring him at, and you give him a couple other alternative times to make it therefore clear that you're being reasonable and you're trying to meet the speech person halfway. If that's not going to work for you, then you need to provide transportation to the speech therapy services for him. I don't really understand why what he got during extended school year would have any bearing on what kind of speech services he would need in the fall. I mean, if anything, services during the school year tend to be more robust and intensive because the standard during the school year is you have to make progress, whereas in the summer, there's some anticipated regression, and whether or not you get services depends on how quickly you get your skills back when you come to school. So if they're giving you speech therapy services in the summer to prevent regression, surely you're going to need them in the fall, where you actually have to make progress. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense.
What we seem to be getting a lot of like, we don't do this, like this isn't Burger King. You don't get to have it your way. Well, actually, you do get to have it your way. If you need speech therapy services during the summer, the district's going to have to accommodate your schedule as long as you're being reasonable.
There you go. Okay, we only have like a minute left, so I'm going to squeeze this one in.
Bring it on.
My child came home with a bruise on his face. He is nonverbal, 13, ASD, and intellectual disability. I asked the school what happened. They said he was fine when he left school. I asked the bus driver, and he says he got on the bus that way. There are only 2 days left of school. I'm sick not knowing who did this to him. I don't know what to do. I don't even want to send him. Please help.
Okay. This is a really consistent pattern that we have when students get injured at school. And everybody always sort of subtly tries to turn it around and blame it on the parent. So it's like he was fine when he got to school, he was fine during school, and he was fine on the bus. Well, that doesn't help you a lot. There's only 2 days worth of school left. You've probably already, those 2 days have already gone by since Shannon got the question. So you probably already decided whether to send him or not. All you can do for this year is document the injury and hope that it's just a one-time only freak thing. But usually what happens instead is kids start showing up with a pattern of injuries and the denials continue. And so at a certain point, what I do is I file a government claim for personal injuries, which is what you do if you're going to sue a school district in California. It's called a government claim. You can Google it, look at like Los Angeles Unified School District government claim on the internet, and you'll see what the form looks like. And that's my way of putting them on notice that I'm aware that the student's being injured at school, and that will ultimately become the basis of a lawsuit, or I will file it and use it as leverage in due process and agree to dismiss it in exchange for getting a settlement that I want of the educational services. But in California, you do have to file, for a minor, you do have to file a government claim if you plan to sue the school district. They're not complicated. Anybody could figure out how to fill them out. But that's kind of legal. I think if this continues in the fall when he returns, you have to document the injuries and you have to convene an IEP meeting to force them to discuss what to do about this. But some of the ugliest cases we have done involve a pattern of behavior like this where the student is showing up again and again and again with injuries, and nobody knows, they're just like being kind of imposed by magic. Nobody knows anything. So that's really disheartening, and my heart goes out to you because it's not a good position to be in. Yeah,
absolutely. But thank you for that wonderful advice, Bonnie, and I'm sorry because we're out of time, but I appreciate you more than you know. Tell us again how we can get a hold of Hirji and Chow and you.
310-391-0330 is the phone number, and the office would be happy to do an intake for you, a complimentary intake if you're in Southern California. If you're in Northern California or elsewhere, keep sending the questions and we'll try to answer them on the air. And great questions. Thank you, everybody, for being so thoughtful.
Thank you, Bonnie, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds no. Next week I'll be in New York visiting my pregnant daughter.
All right. Well, you have fun doing that and give everybody our love. All right. We'll see you the week after.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks a bunch.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Shannon.
Bye-bye. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're back here with Paul Nightingale from Nawmal.com. Stick with us.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman back with Talk of Facts. Questions, real life questions and answers for the autism journey. Oh, are you ready for this one? Talk to me about puberty. So what I would recommend is, first and foremost, is the kids that have done the therapeutics, the medical, and the dietary allergen removal interventions tend to have an easier time at puberty. Seizures are really common for children on the spectrum, more than neurotypical populations, and they're especially most common right at or about puberty time. So it's extremely important, even if you have a 10-year-old, that you've already done an EEG, that you consider before they go through puberty to get a second EEG done. Just because you have one clean EEG with no abnormal brain activity or seizure activity, you need to do another one prior to puberty. That's one of the most common calls we get with teens on the spectrum, is they are often experiencing a seizure for what their family thinks is the first time. And the third thing is, you're gonna have a teenager, so you're really gonna have to kick it up a notch on those life skills, social skills, and getting your kid ready to be that teenager they need to be. So if you're doing that baby thing, and I know you are, where you're maybe making their lunches or helping them with laundry, we need to start bouncing some chores over to those kids. And we also need to increase social environments where they can be successful. So think about it. We've got 3 really important things that we need to look at. Puberty is a very serious issue, and we take it very seriously. So make sure you have all of your therapeutics, medical, and dietary interventions in place. Consider to do another 24-hour EEG with your physician prior to puberty. And the third most important thing, get ready to raise the bar. Your job is to really get them ready for life. And I know you can do it.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I told you that our topic this week is functional communication. And, you know, we talk about functional communication a lot and all the different ways that you can do functional communication. Well, I've got a treat for you, because there's a new way. There's a new kid on the block doing functional communication in a new way. You can see him over my shoulder. Paul Nightingale, we're welcoming him to the show. He is from a site called Nawmal.com. Now, am I saying that right, Paul?
You are indeed. It benefits from either an English accent or a Boston accent.
I said it. It sounds like I'm saying normal, as if I'm from the Northeast. Was that the goal?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the goal really from day one with that was that we're normal. We're just a little bit different, right? Because we are, and that's what we try and do, and that's what we try and encourage with the work that we're doing.
Okay, and so for those who are listening, Nawmal is spelled Nawmal. You can go to Nawmal.com. And so, Paul, you have something, well, first of all, explain what Nawmal in general is, because then we're going to talk about Nawmal Spark.
Sure. So we're a company that's been in business for a handful of years. About 4 years ago, we launched our products initially into the corporate training market, so e-learning market. And what our tool does is it allows people very quickly to create animated characters, so 3D animated characters. And we developed technology which uses artificial intelligence to drive these 3D animated characters. And what that results in is that the users don't really need a high level of skill training in 3D animation to be able to make a character talk. So initially that was being used in the training market as a tool to create training videos. We also had adoption within the classroom, within a traditional education classroom, where teachers was using the tool to create lesson assignments or to grab students' attention. But it was also simple enough to use that students from 2nd, 3rd grade were able to use the software to create their own animated presentations. So that's kind of our background. It's this 3D animation tool that allows you to create talking avatars. About a year ago, it became evident that we had a number of users on the spectrum that were using our software. And that sort of initially piqued my interest, so we decided to invest some time to learn about how those people were using the software, what they were doing with it, and what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. So we started talking with families of people using the software at home, also with schools that we'd identified that were working in special education. So we'd have teachers whose focus was on working in ASD or with other learning differences, difficulties, who'd been using our software. And we reached out to all of them to try and get stories back of how they were using it. And what we found was incredible and warranted then investing more time in better understanding that, collating information, and trying to transition from anecdotal stories of individuals who were using our tool at home as a communication aid. For whatever reason, they may felt more comfortable in using a talking avatar to speak for them. It could be the dynamic of that user being able to control the process of creating their talking avatar, that they feel more comfortable in doing that. We have examples from families where a mother and son were conducting conversations between two characters within our app. So they would have a virtual conversation or a conversation between the virtual characters that they wouldn't have in person. So we started to discover this enabling capability of using these 3D avatars. And in part, there's a little vicarious distance, right? So it's not happening face-to-face, it's happening within the software. And so our users can control exactly what they want the character to do. They can make it say what they want it to say. They can change what they want it to say. They can do that on their own before they then share it with other people.
And so Paul, this is amazing, because it's an amazing opportunity. And what skills do they have to be able to do this? And what are you finding that it's just very intuitive for them?
So we know that the software is pretty easy to use, but that's a very loose description, right? People have different levels of skill sets coming into this. But we do know that in some of the classrooms of the schools that we're working with, kids from age 8, within 15 minutes of first exposure of the software, have created conversations within the app. So the requirement to use the current version of the technology is to be able to read and write or read and type. What we've done since embarking on this discovery path, so there's been a few phases of what we've done. One was to pull together information. We then took that to a couple of organizations that are present within this world, Autism Speaks notably to begin with, to get their validation on what we were seeing. They very kindly opened the door to introduce us to a number of organizations, and we're now working very closely with a handful of schools with expertise working with students with autism. And what we're learning from those interactions is the way that they're using the software in the classroom and things that we can do to improve our software that's being led by feedback from those teachers, the therapists, and the students on what they like doing with the software. So one of the things that we've done is to look to try and extend the accessibility of our app beyond reading and typing. Is we've now have an agreement in place with Tobii Dynavox to use their Boardmaker icons. And we've prototyped a version of our software that uses the sort of standard pictos from Boardmaker to enable you to input phrases using those icons that are familiar to a number of people within this space. Now, the software, again, really the focus on this is ease of use and supporting however somebody wants to work with the software. So we support typing as an input. We also do recorded voice. So you can speak, record your voice, and then the character will automatically lip sync to what you've recorded. And initially, I wasn't sure how useful that would be, but we're now starting to see that being able to enable a user to mirror their own performance and to have a character speak what they've recorded can be really beneficial. And and this idea of supporting as many ways for people to create what they want to say is key, and it goes beyond straightforward communication. Like what we've started to tap into is exposing individuals' creativity. Like they tell stories using our software. It's not just I want water. It's not like basic functional communication. It's expression. It's expression about personality, what I like, what scares me that comes across in a story. Sense of humor that's being expressed by by individuals who are not comfortable with verbal communication. They're expressing a sense of humor. To me, this is amazing, wonderful, and it's a driver towards where we're going with what we're developing now, is to better support that.
It's absolutely amazing. I can't even imagine, you know, for the individuals that have this technology and have been using it, and their parents, are you just getting the best compliments in the world, Paul?
It is. I've never experienced anything like this in my life, where the feeling that we have for what we're doing is incredibly rewarding. Because previously we were in the corporate training world, right? And it's a totally valid world to be in. We were helping people do their job better, hopefully. But we were helping them create animation more cost effectively.
Yeah.
What we're talking about now is a real change that can have a real impact on some people's lives. And we know from feedback from some of the families that, you know, that I'm sure you're familiar with that, as an anxiety level builds, so a communication ability may decrease.
Right.
Right. So one of the families that we talk with, the mother was saying that she better understands sooner what's frustrating her son before his anxiety level builds, and they on occasion avert a violent outburst because they're able to address that more quickly. Now that's because he's more comfortable expressing this and feels more adept at doing that within the software. And that person, Vito, sends me videos, short videos from time to time. The last one he sent, he was impersonating me in the video. Hi, this is Paul from Nawmal. It's fantastic. And I'd love to say that this was by design and that we knew that this was going to resonate and was going to find this market or enable this market. It's purely by coincidence, but I do pride us on being sensitive to it and being able to then spend some time to investigate what this is. Now, having pooled information, the next phase was, okay, validate, does this really make sense? And then secondly, are we hurting anyone in this process? And I don't believe we are, right? We don't want to damage anyone by enabling them to communicate. So really our platform is just a way for them, I think it opens a door.
Absolutely.
And if somebody's more comfortable in communicating this way, that's fantastic. And so what we're now doing is building some streamlined applications that support some of the use cases that we've identified here. And one of those is on helping somebody express themselves. The other one is a tool to support conversational practice. And that can be between a family member and a student or an individual, a family member. We know we have schools that are using it in that way currently, where a student who was very reluctant to communicate, typed 3 words the first time he used the software, has now had a conversation with the teacher that works with him about his favorite film.
Oh.
And I don't lay claim that this is a solution, but we've definitely tapped into something really compelling here. So our goal now is to continue to develop, to improve what we're doing, to make it more accessible to more people, and learn from that. And we're being led by the people that are using the software, which is great.
Well, I have to congratulate you on listening, because I love that this came about through Kismet, but that you paid attention. As you said, you were sensitive, and now you've picked this up, and what an amazing, amazing gift to our community. So let's get down to the bare bones of it. Where do people go to try it and to see what it is and to get excited about it? How do they get all started?
So we're in the process of transitioning our business a little bit, actually, because we've gone through this phase of looking at what we can do, and I think there is something we can do, so we're going to embrace that even more. We have a website up that's called spark.nawmal.com. You can go to nawmal.com, nawmal.com, and it directs you to Spark. And Spark really is just this blanket initiative that we're using of trying to spark an idea, of trying to spark some communication with the goal that people can build on that. Because we're not communicating for them, we're just giving them a way to do that. So if you go to Nawmal or to spark.nawmal.com, there's some of what I've just been talking about is represented on there. So some of the conversations we've had, some of the uses that we've seen, and we're now starting to build out that website with more examples. One of the longer term goals of what we're trying to do is to share resources between users of our software. So that can be that if I build a conversational exercise with my child because I want them to practice going into a pizza restaurant and feeling comfortable and how they could, what to expect and what their interactions could be. I think the term that circulates within this world is social stories. So it's depicting these social scenarios. So we can model that with our software. What's really unique about our software is then the student or the family member can practice those conversations that they've just seen within the software in that conversational format to reinforce the learning, for them to practice, build familiarity, and build some competence within it, or confidence. So there's a unique sort of twist that we're doing on that. Our goal is to enable people to share those little scenes so that not everyone has to invent from scratch the same learning, the same lessons that they, and I've seen, and I've spoken with people who've built this huge library of resources that they've used with their own child. And then there's a willingness to share that stuff. So we'd like to be able to facilitate that for the sharing of information. What we're working towards through Spark is to spark connections between individuals, their families, and their friends, so that we could do online communication between people using the avatars as a safe place to do those conversations. So Spark is the sort of umbrella for those initiatives of these new apps we're building. Like I mentioned, we have this deal with Toby now to incorporate their board maker icons as a simplified interface. That those will be under this Spark umbrella. So if you go there, there's a free trial that you can take. You can sign up for, you try the software, see if it's something that your child, if your students respond to. And I've asked the schools that we work with what the response has been from their students. Have any of them tried the app and then left it, like lost interest in it? And they said it really falls into two categories. Either a student who's just not interested and won't touch it, or if they do start using it, they want to go all the way. They want to explore everything within the software. And the software is very powerful, right? It allows you to do these conversations, but it also allows you to add expression, gesture to the characters. So you can model facial expressions within there using emoticons that you drop into the text, and wherever you drop that emoticon in, the character will smile, or they'll frown, or they'll do that expression or gesture. So modeling simplistic expressions and body language is entirely doable within the software. We can also move characters around, move the cameras around, so you can become quite sophisticated and quite adept using the software. And what we found to date actually is most of the early users that we'd identified who are on the spectrum like to use all of those tools. They like to explore this.
Wow.
Because one of the things we're capturing here, or we're capitalizing, is it's like a game engine. It's like a game.
Yeah.
So communication becomes, practice of that communication is fun. And it's not an exercise, it's fun. You can make that character swear, you can make them do silly things. And we know of one of the families that we work with where the son models arguments in the software between two characters. he doesn't show that to anyone else. He doesn't want to share it with anyone else. He's doing that so that he understands the dynamic of what's going on there. So this is, you know, we've built an entry door to enable you to try the software, see if your child, family member, student likes it. If they do, subscribe, then you get full access to what's going on. Currently, we run on Windows devices, so it's on a laptop, on a PC, or on a Windows tablet. And part of that is we do a lot of computation that's going on here, right? We're doing artificial intelligence and a 3D game engine. That doesn't work so well on the cloud. Now, the more we learn about how we're using this, we will build other versions that are lighter and more usable on different platforms. But today, it runs very well on a low-end Windows device, and we work quite closely with Microsoft, who now have $250 clamshell laptops that they sell in education, which are perfectly adequate for running this.
Wow.
So we built it to be accessible we don't demand a high-end gaming computer workstation. It's relatively accessible. If you've got a 5-year-old PC, it should work on that.
This is amazing, and I think you're going to find it's going to do a lot more things that you don't even know yet. I want to encourage you at some point when you have time, but you've got all these things going on. I want to encourage our viewers to, even with your children that are a little bit younger, give this a try and see what you think and what happens, because just that ability to move the eyebrow, do whatever, becomes a modeling system. And I would be interested in seeing data on how well a person addresses a social situation before they use your app and afterwards, because I bet it's going to help to teach them those aspects too.
We've identified a few research projects that we'd like to do.
Yeah.
And we are building relationships with some research organizations who fortunately have people who are way more intelligent than I am that can look after that how you manage that process. And the goal with that is we will learn through those interactions, and we can see what we can build, what it can grow to, what can transfer from within the app to outside of the app. And so we will quantify that, and we will publicize that. But what we know today is that all of the users who are on the spectrum using our software are using the existing technology that's there, and they get significant benefit from doing it. And that benefit can be as minimal as respite, right? They're just having fun doing this thing, to expressing something about their personality, their creativity, their emotion within those videos that they create. There's an example on our website. It's just described because one of the things we have to be very wary of here is privacy, right? So I'd love to be able to show all of these students that we work with and how they're using it. That's not the case. But we will describe some of those utilizations. And one of them is with this 14, 15-year-old boy in the UK who writes stories within the software. His example that his mom told me about was he and his friends locked in the classroom at school because their teacher had forgotten about them. So there's this story of jeopardy within there. In it, he's expressing a sense of humor, but it's a story, and I come from a storytelling background. So we communicate things through those stories. So is that a fear that's being communicated, right? Of being locked in somewhere and left on your own.
Yeah.
So again, this is very early stages. We've devoted a year of time to understand this and to now start to move this forwards. But if we can, for a small number of people or a large number of people, help build this connection and communication, then it's a worthwhile effort.
Amazing. Paul, I wish I had a lot more time to talk. We're out of time, but we got to have you back again as this builds and grows. But I really want to encourage people, go to Nawmal, NAWMAL.com, or what is the Spark direct?
Spark.nawmal.com.
Okay, spark.nawmal.com, and check it out. Sign up for the free trial. and check it out. And we'd love to hear from you guys. If you're using it at home and it's working for you, I can't wait to play with this because it's just amazing. So thank you, and thank you everybody that you're working with. We have to say goodbye.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for the opportunity to introduce what we're up to. We're really excited by it. I look forward to coming back and updating you again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And you guys, we're past time, so I have to say goodbye, but we're back all this week with shows, and we are going to recap what happened at the Ed Asner Poker Tournament. So tune in tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.